I wrote several pieces for members of Black Pencil, and Ezra Pilivanli, viola, and Mark Kassel, accordion, had already formed a duo Mare, and they liked to perform a new piece. For them I composed Tangente in 2011. I chose the title because I like the sound, the South American sound of it, and because it's another vision on the tango. Tangente for violin and accordion. Matthijs Koene is not only an excellent pan flute player, but also a very good friend. I composed several pieces for him, and Turbulenza di Protoni 2010 is one of them. There is a story connected to this title. I had a good friend, I mentioned him before, Ton Brunel, very good electronic composer. And whenever something unexpected would happen, we would exclaim, Turbulenza di Protoni. It means turbulence of air molecules. It's a work for pan flute and organ, which is really virtuoso piece for both musicians. Often the pan flute easily has more volume than the organ, even with all registers in use. Up till now, nobody has dared to perform this piece because it's extremely difficult for the pan flute, but also for the organ player. And although Matthijs Koene teaches at the Amsterdam Conservatory, among his students, there's no one yet who has dared to play this challenging piece. Luckily, he enjoys playing it very much and performs it quite often. I thought Turbulenza would be an appropriate title. Turbulenza di Protoni, 2010. Would you like to say a few words about Annelie?
You can do that, yeah. Should I stick to English or?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Annelie de Man was Roderik's wife. Very important harpsichordist. She was actually the one who started new harpsichord age or new age for the harpsichord in the Netherlands by having a piece commissioned by Louis Andriessen. By the way, I brought the score with. It's maybe interesting, whoever wants to read, look at it. It's even in Louis Andriessen's handwriting still. It's the first publication. And it was very important that she started this because she was already dedicated to the so-called historical harpsichord. And at the same time there was Elisabeth Chojnacka, very important harpsichordist who worked a lot with Xenakis. All pieces by Xenakis were written for her. And she stuck to the modern harpsichord, which has this pedal arrangement and looks more like a, I don't know, I don't want to use a word now, it's a completely different instrument. So we had these two protagonists, both of contemporary harpsichord music, and of course all the music that was written for Anneli was written for the historical instrument, and actually she was very successful with having more composers besides you writing for her, and not only Dutch composers but worldwide, and she became the important player. And I was not a student anymore, but I was searching for what is happening in the contemporary harpsichord world, and there was no internet at that time yet. So I don't even remember how I found out about her, but there was some kind of address that was given to me. I think what's the address where you're still living. So I wrote a letter, and she answered immediately, and we got into contact, and it was very, very good and very nice for me because she gave me lots of inspiration, and we were in contact for a very long time. That's how I met you, and also got to know your music, and I think that's.
Do you have any harpsichord? You have a number of harpsichord students here?
Yes, yeah. At the moment, I have 3 major students.
Did you tell them about the prix?
Yes, yeah. But besides Dasha, who participated last time, they're not that ready yet, I think, for their.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Even doorgeskipt naar Sonneries.
Huh?
Ik heb even doorgeskipt naar Sonneries omdat hij het over Anneli had.
Ik kan het niet verstaan.
Even doorgeskipt naar Sonneries
Ja.
omdat hij het over Anneli had. Dus ik weet niet of je het leuk vindt om een stukje van Anneli te spelen. Of wil je terug naar Black Pencil?
Nee. Voor zijn interieur, dat kan ook daarna.
Oké.
Of is dat lastig?
Nee, ik kan hem gewoon terugzetten op voor zijn interieur.
Oké.
Ja, zal ik het doen?
Doen we
Of zullen we
sonnerie doen we nu.
Oké.
Oké. It's appropriate to play a piece in which Anneli plays an important role. The piece is called Sonnerie pour Anneli for violin, cello and harpsichord. The last piece I wrote for her. Anneli was an excellent harpsichordist, professor who taught at the Königlichen Konservatorium. Christian Nyquist was so kind to talk a little bit more about Anneli and about the prix. The word sonnerie in the title refers to its different meanings, which were an inspirational source for this piece. Sonnerie may be seen as a reference to the music by the legendary gamba player and composer Marin Marais, 1656 to 1728, and to the signals which serve to mark time, such as the pealing of bells. Although there is no programmatic intent, the shifting sonorities produced by the bells are clearly present in the harpsichord part. Sonnerie pour Anneli for violin, violoncello and harpsichord 2007.
Zullen we dat nu doen? Ja.
Kijk hoor. As I said before, the harpsichord plays an important role in my life. For my wife, I wrote many pieces, some solo and others where I combined electronics with the harpsichord. A piece that became quite well known is called Frenzy, 1985, for harpsichord. It has been performed very often. Since it's a short piece, I would like to play the whole piece. The quality of the recording is not ideal, but it will have to do. The influence of jazz is quite obvious. It makes use of so-called riffs, and at a certain point, the walking bass is introduced. Frenzy,
No, sorry.
Frenzy, 1985. Forza interieur doen.
Ja. Wil je het stuk spelen of wil je eerst nog een introductie doen?
Kan het?
Ja.
Jorge Isaac, the leader of Black Pencil, is originally from Venezuela, and he commissioned me to write a piece based on the South American joropo culture. This is Forza Interior, written in 2013. At a certain point, all the members of the ensemble have to shout Forza Interior, inner strength. It has become a popular piece and is performed quite often. Forza Interior 2013. My wife and I visited many festivals, and often we took the harpsichord along in our station car. I remember when going to the garage, I said, I would like to buy a station car, but only if you can fit the harpsichord in. And the man thought for a while, and then he came up with a solution. By taking out the front seat, the harpsichord would fit, and there was just enough room in the back because the back seat was divided in a small and a large part. There was just enough room for someone to sit in the small seat, and we had to be very careful not to push too far, but it worked. And in this way, we visited Spain, Austria, Norway, France, and many other countries, even quite far into Spain. The ISCM dates from Bela Bartok's period and gave composers the chance to meet all different places around the world, at different places around the world. Many times I was selected by the ISCM, which promotes contemporary music in other countries, and luckily it was subsidized in those days by the Dutch government. This way we were able to visit Hong Kong, Mexico, Norway, Switzerland, South Korea, France, among others. Writing for instruments that you are not familiar with always prompted me to investigate the possibilities which are typical for the instrument, in this case the guitar. So I bought a classical guitar to familiarize myself with the instrument. The greatest compliment you can get is when a composer says, "You must play guitar." Then you have been right. I think it's often a good idea to get a feel of the instrument involved. Of course, there is a limit to the possibilities. But I was told that composer Edward Elgar was able to perform practically on all instruments of the orchestra, which is very exceptional. Here is my piece Dul Camara, 2001, for solo guitar. It is performed by Reinhold Westerheide, an excellent German guitarist who also studied percussion in The Hague. Very often guitarists have the tendency to play too freely. Reinhold's knowledge of percussion prevented that. Dul Camara, which means bittersweet, 2001 for solo guitar. In 1999 is it, I wrote the 4 Cope songs, originally for piano, here for voice and instrumental ensemble. The text of these poems are quite ironic and humorous, by a lady who looks back on her encounters with men. Performed by Andrea Jones. Prelude, Spring Onions and Some People. Kage is from 2000 for recorder and CD, or electronics as you like. The attraction of recorders and its players is their enthusiasm to tackle any problems composers put on their doorstep. I found it to be refreshing mentality and composed many pieces for them with or without electronics. There are many types of recorders, or blokfluits as they are called, starting with the Gaarklein and ending with the Petzold in F and C. Practically the lowest of the elaborate family. Usually the lower instruments produce the softest sound in the lowest registers. Often amplification is needed. The first performance of Kage, which means shadow, took place in Hirado in Japan by Marjolein van Roon. The Japanese title means shadow, as I said before, or reflection, and refers to the interaction between the electronic part and the live part. Shakuhachi sounds, Japanese type of flute, exclamations and expressions of the Japanese no theater formed the material for the CD part. At times, the performer has the choice to follow the score or improvise, or on given material, thus making the duration variable. The composer suggests a duration of maximum 10 minutes. It is important that the display of the CD player is visible at all times. Of course, now we use a computer, and the computer usually also has a counter. Kage. Chamber music has the advantage of being more flexible and their openness to experimentation. Orchestral music is great, of course, but usually less progressive. In the time of all the ensembles, there was a tendency to promote contemporary music. This also had effect on the population of composition students. It became not unusual that we had to teach in other languages than Dutch. Many composers have not Dutch nationalities, but a mixture of all nationalities. They feel at home in our conservatories, and I hope that will not change the coming years. With the political changes, I'm afraid this situation will also have its effect. One of the many ensembles was called Insomnio, performed several of my pieces, and one of them is called Chromophores. Chromophores for Chamber Ensemble and Electronics, 2007. It is scored for flute piccolo, alto flute, oboe, corno inglese, clarinet, bass clarinet, bassoon, trumpet, C, mandolin, amplified, harp, piano, and string quintet. It was quite complicated to set it up and to realize, but it paid off. We received a good review from a prominent German phonograph magazine. Chromophores for Chamber Ensemble and Electronics.
Sorry, I don't.
A message from K. Electronics only.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but how many pieces do you still have? Because for me it would be very important that we have the possibility to speak, and maybe there are some
I don't
questions.
even know, but between 100 and 200.
For today? Okay, so go on, please.
We're almost there.
Okay.
A piece I wrote in 2005 is called A Message from K. Since this is a very short piece, I would like to play it completely. Can you guess who speaks the text? He's a very famous German composer.
After having heard certain sounds, and this is the more the case when we hear organized sounds, organized by another human being. Music. Music. Music.
Have you guessed it?
Of course, it came from Sirius.
Sorry, I can't.
Serious?
Huh?
Serious? I don't know, which is he?
No.
A message from Sirius.
Stockhausen.
Yes, of course. From Sirius.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yes. Directly.
That's where he is now.
You're here?
Nou, Kendien.
Kendien, even kijken, Kendien.
Een paar bladzijden, moet je een paar bladzijden door.
Huh?
Een klein stukje.
Antara Benua dan Benua.
Ja.
Oké. In a few days I will travel to Indonesia. I try to do that every year. Very often we teach at universities, etc. Because there are a number of composition students. Sometimes when they're lucky, they get a scholarship and they can study here, but usually it's too expensive for them. Because it's strange, they have wonderful universities, good teachers, everything, and then it stops because there's only one orchestra in Jakarta that I know of. They play sort of semi-popular music. And when you go to CD shops, you'll find anything but classical music. So it's very limited. So I was speaking to you about it. Huh?
Nothing, it's my mail.
Okay.
Stockholm.
They have these wonderful universities, and we go there and work with them, especially the composition students. But there's nothing for them there. Only the very inventive ones find a way, but it's very limited. It's a bit strange. So sometimes we go there even with an ensemble, and then we perform their pieces, because they also have a strong need to be performed by interesting ensembles. And I always sense that they're very eager to hear about composing, composition, about what's happening in the West, etc. So for me it's very nice, but not for them. I wrote several gamelan pieces also. One of them is Antara Benua dan Benua. It's for gamelan and electronics, 2006. Fragment of 3 minutes.
We've got 2 more pieces after this, and then we'll go over to some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Those are the beautiful gamelan instruments. The notation of gamelan music has different possibilities. Originally, it was an oral tradition, but many gamelan players read notes, and the notation is often in A-flat, depending on slendro or pelok, which has to do with the tuning of the instruments. No gamelan sounds the same, be it slendro or pelok, a pentatonic scale or a 7-tone scale. The eminent poet Sitor Situmorang provided the poetic text. It tells, of the evening atmosphere in the landscape and young women carrying the burden on their heads. I used Indonesian language and alternating with Dutch translation. That's the gamelan piece. We have one piece left.
We've got this one and then we've got La Volta.
Sorry?
We have this one and then we have La Volta.
La Volta.
Unless you want to go to La Volta.
La Volta.
La Volta.
La Volta is a hybrid piece, which means it's based on old music, but very often my friend Jorge says, when are you putting the poison in? So he wants to transform a well-known melody, and then suddenly it starts shifting and it takes on another identity. And that's a principle I use often. It's a piece of 6 minutes and I would like to do the whole thing, 6:30 I think, yeah. La Volta, Black Pencil Ensemble. That's the last piece.